Hey, it's another Larry Live. Thanks for coming by. It's just you and me. We'll have a good time whenever you pick this up, whatever time of day it happens to be. But welcome. Glad to have you riding along with me here on Larry Live. Have some things to talk about today, pretty interesting, and hope you'll stick with me here for the next few minutes. It's about common sense. You know, right now I was riding down the road yesterday in my car, and I was listening to CNN, MSNBC, and some of the news outlets on my satellite radio, and there was just such glee in the voices of the reporters that they were so excited because they were anticipating a conversation that Mr. Mueller's going to have with the President Trump. They think that finally we're getting now to the point where we can maybe get something on the president, and of course, the ultimate goal is to overturn the election and get rid of him. You know, it's an obsession. It's almost reached a point of, what is that called? Fervid pitch? There's a fervid pitch out there. And I think it's contrary to what I call common sense. So I just wanted to go through some things and explore with you today. What is commonsensical about overturning the election of President Trump? That's my theme for this presentation. In other words, what's the logic behind this compulsion? What's the logic behind it? Does it make any sense at all to remove the president? It'd be like, in some respects, kind of like removing, Tom Brady from the Patriots quarterback position. We got to get rid of this person who's helping us to win these games and be so successful. So, who started this effort to get rid of President Trump? Well, obviously it came from the Democratic Party. It came from Hillary Clinton. And unfortunately, it also came from people like Peter Strzok and Page and the other people who in the higher levels of the FBI are increasingly apparent that they were involved in trying to tear down and overturn the election of Donald Trump. They were going to pick the president for us. The American people didn't have enough sense to know what they wanted, so we're going to leave it up to Peter Strzok. Oh, gee. And then they came up with this cockamamie Russia, Trump colluded with the Russians nonsense, which is just a hoax, and there's no evidence of it. And, this has become, everybody agrees with that conclusion at this point. They've totally given up on that idea. And they're so excited that maybe Robert Mueller is going to have an interview or bring the president in and set him down and ask him questions, try to catch him in some kind of a lie. They'd love nothing more than to see the president removed from office. That's what this is really about. It's a silent coup. It's an attempt to overturn the will of the people. This is serious, very serious business, what's going on here. Not a laughing matter at all. But I just want to help think through this whole thing just from a different, maybe a slightly different perspective. I'd like to think about how much sense does it make to engage with and pursue and support the efforts of the Democrats who are trying to overturn the election. Does it make any sense to join with the mob mentality and say, crucify him, crucify him. Give us Hillary, give us Hillary. But what about Trump? Crucify him, crucify him. Does that ring a bell with anybody? Oh, gee. What is this? What is this insanity? What is called by some the Trump derangement syndrome? I'm just asking you to not allow yourself to get caught up in this. It's just contrary to common sense, for one thing. What is the logic behind this compulsion? Why do they hate him? For which good deed do they hate him? Yes. Who started this effort? Well, it's people who were jealous and envious and who were power hungry, and they wanted to, get the gold crown or whatever. So while the Main Street media are gleeful over the prospects that the president might be charged with some crime of some sort and removed from the Oval Office, there's one fundamental question that we have to ask, and that is this, the common sense question. Let's suppose that President Trump, somehow they're successful in getting him removed from office. First of all, it would be a tragic thing, in my view, but let's ask ourselves, what would that mean? Is Trump's removal going to be good for us? And another way of asking the question is, does it make any sense at all to remove Trump from office, given the policies that he has initiated? In other words, bringing it right down home, if the president's policies were overturned and he was removed, would it be good for me and my family? So let's talk about policies instead of personality. Some of you don't like his brash way. Okay, fine. There's some things about his personality that I think are just absolutely hilarious. I get Trump, okay? I'm not easily offended. Sometimes he says things that, like ordinary people would say. It's not like he's some demon, some monstrous person in my view. But I guess if you're easily offended, you can carry that bucket and cry in it ever so often about how unpresidential he is. I don't care if he's unpresidential, whatever that is. Somebody please define what a presidential is. He's just being himself, and I like that about him. I like it that he is just himself, and that's pretty cool. So we haven't had a lot of that. So let's take it back to the common sense question. Okay, it's really about policies. It's about a paycheck. It's about a good job. It's about family income. It's about what kind of house you can afford to live in. What kind of a car can you drive? It's about being able to make choices about you and your family. For example, will we be able to take a vacation this year? Are we going to have the money to do some things that we would like to do? That's what his economic policies are really about, how those policies affect us. And there's a correlation between having money and having choice. If you don't have any money, you don't have much choice about the kind of house you're going to live in, the kind of car you'll drive. As a matter of fact, if you don't have a job and you don't have any money, you're not going to have a car and you're not going to have a house. And you can see the correlation between income and freedom. Because if you don't have any money, then you don't have any choices. You're reduced to living as a dependent on welfare or in government handouts, and depending on other people to cover your life expenses just so you don't starve to death. Now, that's not the American dream, and we have gradually been drifting downward in terms of people's expectations of making a good living and having a good life. It's called the American dream. And for the first generation, I think in the history of the country, people have in the past few years talked about, well, the best days of America and the American dream are over. But is that really true? I think it has been true under the leadership of the socialistic-minded Barack Obama, who sincerely believed that the country could be improved if we would just distribute the wealth more evenly, and if we were more egalitarian and we focus on social justice and equality. I don't hold any animus toward President Obama. I just happen to know a little bit about history and remember how many countries have tried this and failed. I'm talking about socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it. And if we are looking at common sense questions, we have to ask these questions about how are Trump's policies affecting us. Okay? So am I going to have more money as a result of President Trump's activities? Am I going to have a better job because of his policies? Am I going to have the ability to make some decisions and have more freedom in my life? Every 4 years, we get to choose somebody who's going to set economic policies for our families. And not all these people have the same theories and philosophies. They're basically those two schools of thought. You know what they are, capitalism and socialism. There's been a lot of effort to badmouth capitalism. A lot of people in college, younger people, think that, oh, capitalism, that's bad, bad, bad. They've created a negative association, a kind of a negative connotation when you hear the word capitalism. But how did this country become the prosperous nation that it is? Did it arise from socialism? Was it socialism that was the basis of our success? Of course not. No. It arose from the principles of the free market, the principles of capitalism. And then, inevitably, in history, I can see this from, and you can see it too from if you study history a little bit, that once a nation is successful through capitalism, along come the people who want to do societal tinkering. They want to do some sociological adjustments. They want to make some socialistic changes, and we're going to make it fair, and we're going to make it equal, and we're going to make it utopian, and everybody's going to be equal. It's going to be heaven on earth. It's a fantasy. Never happens, and it always turns out where the people of the country suffer. They're equal, okay, they're equally miserable, with a handful of people up at the top who have all the power and all the control. And you will conform to that boot on your neck, or else you'll either be eliminated or imprisoned. You've got to learn to cooperate. That's the history of socialism. So, when we look at Trump and we look at Hillary Clinton in this past election, you could see the distinction between those two economic philosophies very clearly. It was crystal clear. It wasn't about personality. I think Hillary has a terrible personality. She's just listening to her grating voice and the tone in her voice and her kind of arrogant tone, and just not good, not likable at all. Whereas Trump, people complain about him not, being rude and everything. The guy is so likable. You gotta, he's just himself, and people love Trump. They love his honesty. They like his brash ways. People are tired of smooth. They're tired of suave. They're tired of the teleprompter. They just, they'd like to have a real person in office for a change. And in this case, as we're talking about common sense, somebody who understands how you make money, where does money come from? Does it come from the government? Well, the government doesn't have any money. The only way they can have money is to take it from you or me or somebody else who has made the money. Oh, I guess they can print it out on printing presses. That's what Obama did for his 8 years with a thing called quantitative easings to prop up the stock market during his era. But socialism just hasn't worked. So Trump has put in these policies. Let's take a look at some of them and ask ourselves some questions. To me, it's a matter of common sense. Now, just comparing Mr. Obama, for example, when he came to office, what did he know about business? Did he have any experience of any kind? Did he ever sign a paycheck for somebody in his lifetime? Or was he a total novice when it came to business in the business world? His only economic ideas were based in a fantasy world that he picked up from his father and from those who were communist or socialist philosophers during his childhood, and of course during his educational process. The teachings of Karl Marx and communism. It's living in common, having things in common. He learned his economic policies in the faculty lounge at Harvard, none of which were ever connected to the real world, where business is actually conducted, where money is actually made. In some respects, he never really held a job in his life. He was an Illinois senator. He never worked in the private sector. I suppose you could say when he was at Harvard, he was teaching classes on the Constitution. But I'm talking about in the business world. He didn't really have any experience with it. So everything about his ideas and his policies were based on what? Theories, not practical experience. And what has happened is that anytime those theories of socialism are enacted, actually put into practice, they never work out well for the populations of the countries where these experiments have been tried. So here's a little pop quiz, and then we'll wrap it up here on Larry Live. I'd just like to thank you again for coming. By the way, let's take a look at some of Obama's ideas here and Hillary's ideas before we get into my pop quiz.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
Because we're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Right, Tim?
Okay, so there it is. Obama wants to raise your electrical rates, have them skyrocket. Your expenses in your family home's going to skyrocket. Your job, if you're working in the coal industry, you're going to have your job taken from you. Now, common sense says that's not a good thing for the average American family. So here's my pop quiz, and it just goes down through a quick list. Okay, here we go. Are we better off today because of ISIS being largely destroyed? Yes or no? Yes, we are. I got tired of watching people get their heads cut off. Trump said, we're going to put a stop to it, and we're going to put a stop to it fast. And he has. The world is better off because of Donald Trump. We pay less in income taxes this year. We're going to have more money, discretionary money, when we get our paychecks in February, because the tax deduction is going to be represented in those tax, what is withheld from your paycheck. That's going to be better for us. Yes or no? Yes, I would say yes. It's Trump's policy. Is it a good thing that 200 companies have given out bonuses, some as much as $2,500 of value or bonuses, or just checks for $1,000? Is it good that those 200 companies just pass that money back to their employees because they didn't have to send it to the government? That money that they gave the employees was money that would have gone to Washington. I think that's a good thing, that the people get to keep their own money, what they've already earned, rather than having to give it up to the government, because Donald Trump has passed through the Congress and signed into law a tax cut that helps America and American people. I think that's a good thing. Now, if you don't like more money in your pocket, I guess you would have to say, no, that's not a good thing. Apple brought back $3.5 billion dollars into the nation, and more jobs are coming. They're making investments. They're moving their operations back here. A large part of what they're doing is going to be invested right here in the United States. Is that a good thing? You know what the difference between billion and million is? A million is a lot, but a billion is $1 million times 1,000. It's $1,000 million. $3.5 billion. Just one company bringing that much money back and actually putting it into the economy. That's not just printing money, artificially inflating things. No, this is the real, this is real hard. This is cold cash, if you will. Okay? I think that's a good thing. The stock market has grown 6,000 points in the last 12 months because of Donald Trump. 26,000. It's over 26,000 points as I give this presentation right now. Other countries, President Trump met with the CEOs and the business leaders in Switzerland here the last couple days, and to a person, they were all saying, yeah, we want to invest more in the United States now. Other countries want to expand their businesses in the United States. Is that a good thing with more jobs? Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't it be better if we didn't have these things happening? That's what the press is calling for. That's what the Democrats are calling for. There wasn't a single Democrat who voted for the tax cut. Did you know that? Not one. All of these benefits, all of these good things that are happening, Democrats were opposed to it, absolutely against it. They didn't want you having more of your own money. They didn't want you to keep the money you had earned. It's a fact. It's just a fact. So they think they can spend your money better, and they know how to better manage the money that you make rather than letting you decide. Russia has stopped invading other countries, their neighbors. While Obama was president, they basically did whatever they wanted to do. And this whole thing about Russia, I've got a whole lot of things to say about that, but I'm not going to belabor at this point. But if anybody colluded with the Russians, it was the Democrats, and there's evidence to prove that. Other countries want to join with us. Russia stopped invading. Black and Hispanic communities are seeing their unemployment rates at record lows. Illegal border crossings are down. Consumer confidence is up. The GDP was 3.5 in the last quarter. Are we better off? Yes or no? Or would it be a good thing to join with the rancor on the CNN and MSNBC and the Democrats who are calling for the impeachment of President Trump? It's like somebody has lost their minds here. Common sense tells us all this good that's being done. Are you kidding me? We're going to get rid of the person who's brought this to pass? What is wrong with us? What is wrong with people's thinking that they think it would be a good thing to get rid of him and these terrible policies that he is enacting and perpetrating upon the American people? How could you possibly believe that? How could you possibly agree with that? You see what I'm saying? Hello? I know this makes so much sense. It's what I call common sense. And I'm sure that you agree with me. You don't like his tweeting, you don't like this, you don't like his caustic ways. I don't care about that. I do care about what he is doing for America, and his policies are absolutely great for us. And so, therefore, he's in the process, with the help of his colleagues in the government, to truly make America great again. And that is something very well worth hanging on to. Thanks for stopping by Larry Live. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this presentation, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget, God loves you. He really does, and we love you too. Have a great day.